Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Sunrise Show. Craig Froelich in as your humble host, and want to bring on to the program Sarah Red-Laird. She's our bee girl. Beegirl.com is her website, and she's made the Rogue Valley her home, but she travels all over the world teaching people and young people about bees and what to do and to be bee friendly and happy about bees. And Sophie is here as well. So, Sarah, good to have you in this morning.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, the bloom is on way early, and we're talking pear orchards is the big thing, but also grapes as well, right, and bees. And you have some amazing facts related to whether or not our bees are healthy. I saw your TED Talk. 1 of 3 bites of food on your plate is pollinated by bees.
True story. Yep, that's true.
So do we have enough bees?
We have enough bees, yes. It's a struggle all the time for both our native bees to be able to survive and do what they need to do to pollinate our food. There's constantly people out there that are working, trying to conserve bee habitat, native bee habitat, and then manage bees. We always, every year, somehow everything comes together and we're able to have enough managed honeybees to pollinate our crops, but it is so stressful on the beekeepers. They're really the ones that are bearing the brunt of this collapse that we're seeing and the issues that we're seeing that are affecting the bees. It's really on the head and the dollar and the bank account of the beekeeper to kind of keep those populations up and going.
Exactly, because I've known for years that the mid-states, North Dakota, South Dakota, they have bees there, and they travel around with the different seasons and with the different agricultural systems. Trees out in California, they're there for months, and then they truck them and they put them back and they go. And if you ever see a flatbed truck with a bunch of white boxes on it with a net over it, there's a whole truckload of bees.
Yeah, the vast majority of our managed beehives in this country travel for pollination. And it starts in California in the beginning, end of January, beginning of February. About 86% of beehives in the United States end up in California, in the Central Valley of California, to pollinate almonds. That's 1.7 million hives of bees.
Unbelievable. Now, here's the thing. What about this drought?
Right? Yeah, so I was working for almond pollination as I was working for a broker doing beehive inspections, making sure that the beekeepers had brought in great-looking boxes of bees for almond pollination for the growers. And the water situation is it's fascinating and it's heartbreaking.
Right.
And everyone is pointing the finger and blaming everybody else. And it was kind of frustrating for me because there's these billboards all over the place and there's signs, and it's just all this really negative sentiment, just blaming people for it, but nobody's really looking at themselves and what they can do to mitigate the drought, and everybody's kind of playing the victim, and the city people are pointing their fingers at the farmers, and the farmers are pointing their fingers at the municipalities, and it's I really hope that they can find a way to work together more positively.
Interesting that they just got another target on their back because Governor Brown just did this 25% reduction in water, but then he gave the almond farmers a pass, and I think Nestle a pass on their bottling water production, and yet everybody else is going to be fined this $500 fee if they're caught watering or too much long showers or water over on their sidewalks and that kind of thing. It's nuts. Are the bees, what's this fungus or a mite on a bee? Do we have that problem?
Yeah, the varroa mite. Almost every single hive in the United States, unfortunately, has a presence of varroa mites. So the varroa mite was accidentally brought in on the backs of bees that were imported into this country to keep up with the pollination service that we couldn't provide with just the bees that we had here at the time because we had killed most of them with overuse of pesticides.
Unbelievable, yeah.
Yeah, so we had to import beehives from all over the world, and they weren't really quarantined or inspected well on the way in, so they brought in a lot of pests and a lot of diseases.
Is there anything we can do for these to kill off these mites without the sensitivity?
Yep. There's short-term solutions and there's long-term solutions. So the short-term solutions are treating with a chemical, basically, which is there's a variety of different organic organic acids or essential oils that you can use in the hive, which are a little more expensive. And then there's conventional commercial treatment or conventional chemical treatments, which are cheaper, and they work, but it's dumping a chemical into your hive. But on the long term, there are bees in this world in Southeast Asia where the bees came from that had the varroa mites that can live in synchronicity with the varroa mite. So I think it's really a genetics issue on the long term.
Interesting. Because I was going to say, what does that do to the bee? It's like a fungus or a mite, and so what is it?
It's a vector of disease. So not only, it's like having a mite on a bee's body would be like you or I having a rabbit living on our body, chewing holes in our skin and sucking our blood. That is what suck.
Yeah.
So that's what a varroa mite does to a bee. So not only is it running around on the bee's body wreaking havoc on its exoskeleton, on her exoskeleton, they also vector at least 24 different kinds of diseases. So they bring in deformed wing virus, Israeli acute paralysis virus.
Oh, wow. So they're just
black bee syndrome. Yeah.
They're the gateway for all the other bad stuff.
Yeah.
Well, bees, I want to talk, we have a break coming up, but with the Pear Blossom Festival this weekend, the Pear Blossom Run and the Pear Blossom, parade, and there's a heightened awareness of everything blooming. And bees, I wanted to kind of ask you, related to whether or not we have a healthy population of bees in Southern Oregon. Seems to we do, and it seems like everyone's kind of tuned in. They just saved this big log, right? We want to talk about that. So we've got Sarah Red-Laird, the bee girl, in the studio this morning. You can get to our website, beegirl.com, and of course find her on Facebook as well. And we want to talk about the ordinances in Medford and Ashland to find out what people can do and everyone have a little bit of bees in their life. And of course, the city of Phoenix and their bee city designation, if that's going to fly. The Bloomberg Market Update is next. We'll be back on the Sunrise Show on News Radio 880 KCMX with the Bee Girl after this break.
So get up. Top of the morning to ya. Now, back to Sunrise on News Radio 880 KCMX.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. 35 minutes after the hour. We're continuing with our bee girl, Miss Sarah Red-Laird, in the studio this morning, and bees and whether or not. And Ashland has passed their ordinance. I guess Medford is preparing to pass their ordinance on bees, so that's a good thing. And the city of Phoenix, they want to become a Bee City USA, so very exciting.
Yeah, look at Southern Oregon go.
That's right. Exactly right. And we both had a laugh on the break with President Obama over the weekend with the Easter celebration. And this comes out of Time magazine. Watch kids scream in horror as a bee interrupts Barack Obama at the White House Easter egg roll. He said, hey, it's okay. Bees are good. But meanwhile, the little girls going, bah, bah.
Oh, there's like 30,000 little girls screaming. It was so loud, the audio. You can find the video online. And the kids in the audience are just terrorized by some little bee that's just flying around, which I thought was just like, oh my gosh. I thought that we're past that in this country, but I guess I got a lot of work to do yet.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, it happened to my family, my kids, springtime, park, that kind of stuff. And they go out bare feet in the grass, and there's that clover, they're blooming, and the bees are there, and someone will come along and step on it, and they get stung on the foot, and woo, and that'll stay with them for the rest of their life.
Yeah, it hurts. Bee stings hurt. There's no arguing with the fact that bee stings do hurt. I think that the disconnect is between having a allergic reaction, which is swelling at the site and a lot of pain and a lot of itching, versus, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. And developing a systemic reaction that will actually kill you is something that takes multiple stings over years and years and years. Some people do just will have an anaphylactic reaction and get into trouble with the bee sting, but that's most likely somewhere into 1 to 3% of the population. And an anaphylactic reaction doesn't mean you're instantly going to die within minutes. if you have an EpiPen, that can definitely, if not solve the problem, at least buy you enough time to get to the emergency room. And I've actually seen someone, again, when I was working down in the almonds a couple years ago, someone got stung by a bee. She had been around bees for years and years and years, had received lots of stings, and had finally kind of started developing a sensitivity to it. She got stung in the neck and started going into anaphylactic reaction, but we were way out in the middle of nowhere in farm country, and by the time that we had got to the hospital, she had totally recovered and was just fine. And the doctor said, you know, I'm not even going to give you epinephrine because that will do more harm than good.
But it is quite panicky because
it's scary.
It closes up your throat, and you're not able to breathe, and you suffocate. And
she just, breathing got a little labored, and she got really woozy, and she kind of was going in and out. She passed out a little bit, and then she came back, and then her body totally recovered. So there definitely is I feel like there's a disconnect between the reality of a systemic reaction and a bee sting. And
yeah, they just have to be careful.
Yeah.
So there's so much else going on. Is there, I mean, with the change in temperature, I mean, it's cold. Bees, they huddle, and they do their wings for warmth and things like that, too. So the hives, are you seeing bigger hives or just more of them? Or is there, what would you say for folks that are considering to have a beehive or to keep bees?
Yeah, this spring has been completely wild. So spring started about a month or so early on the West Coast and in Southern Oregon. And so bees started flying. They were like, yeah, it's summertime, and started gathering nectar and pollen and building up their colonies like mad. And for the last few days now, it's been really, really cold, and we're back to kind of normal spring temperatures. And so the bees are now huddling, the honeybees are now huddling inside their hives, eating away all of their resources that they just started to gather. And so this is the time of year that we can actually lose our strongest beehives, because they'll eat themselves out of house and home without being able to get outside.
It's so funny you say that, because I say that about my teenagers, eat me out of house and home.
So, yeah, it's up to us as the beekeepers, again, to kind of reach into our pockets and our bank accounts and invest in supplements like syrup and protein patties, and feed our bees supplemental food until it warms up enough for them to get back out there and capitalize on the next bloom. But so, yeah, beekeeping it's not easy, it's fun, and it's rewarding, and it's amazing, but it's also really challenging. And I think it's important that people know that before they get into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sarah Red-Laird, the Bee Girl. She's the executive director of beegirl.com. She's also the program director for the American Beekeeping Federation and the Kids and Bees and the International Bee Research Association. She's involved. She travels around the world, and today she has another program at Phoenix High School.
I do. Yep,
so
this morning.
That's very good. She's off and running. We'll talk more about bees as we go. And Sarah, it's great to have you in.
Yes, thanks for having me.
All right, back on the Sunrise Show. More after this break.